Sau đây xin mời quý vị khán thính giả theo dõi cuộc phỏng vấn đặc biệt mà Tố Uyên đã thực hiện được trên thành phố Hollywood vào tuần trước. Và chúng tôi đã ngồi xuống với võ sĩ Lê Cung để mà tâm sự những cái dự án mới nhất của anh vừa mới hoàn tất xong.
Hi Cung, it's so great to see you again. I guess it's been over a year since we last saw each other. Since the last saw you was Man with the Iron Fist press interview. That was over a year ago.
Over a year ago.
And you look great. I know you've been super busy traveling all over the world. Tell us about the UFC show in Asia that you've been doing that for the last few months.
The UFC TÜV China, I would say, would be one of my toughest job ever, because when I went in and met with Dana White about taking over his role in China, so I'm the Dana White of China, but I'm also the mentor coach to both teams. Not only did I have to deal with the drama with the fighters, with the coaches, but the drama with the Chinese film crew.
Why? What happened?
They never shot a reality show before. So a lot of times they're taking breaks and they're sitting down and they're waiting for something to happen while they should be shooting all the time. So for me, literally I was picking up the camera and looking to how to shoot, because these guys were sitting there, or one of them would walk out of the building to take a cigarette break. It seemed like they were taking a cigarette break every 15 minutes. So I had to do a lot of complaining, but in a nice way, because, you know, political, you want to be professional, but a lot of times I want to say bad words, lots of bad words. Then the Chinese fighters were not experienced inside the octagon. So not only did I have to show octagon control, a lot of them weren't that good on the ground, and a lot of them had problems when they get pinned up on the fence.
You know, so recently a lot of fans on Facebook asked me to ask you a couple things they want to know. They want to know if you are planning to have any upcoming fights, and if so, when, because they're really looking forward to see you in the ring again. So are you planning any?
I plan to step back in the octagon in August for the Macau fight, but
For UFC?
For UFC. But if Chael, who's supposed to fight Vanderlei, decides that he's not able to fight because he's mentioned, because he's an athlete that uses TRT, and if he can't fight, I'm happy to step in because I want my rematch against Vanderlei. Against Vanderlei, I take my hat off to him. He had a great game plan, but I went in there, I was in 100%. I actually King Mo cracked my rib, but at this time, there's a lot of people who have to go through this. It's like I needed to fight because I needed to pay bills. I was like really low on money and I needed that paycheck, so I had to go in there and fight.
How are you able to manage your acting career aside from your fighting career? And did you get a chance to even put in 150% when you train for your upcoming fights? Because I know you've been so busy with all of your film projects and so on. Did you even have enough time to focus whenever there's a fight coming?
The way I manage my time between acting, well, my acting career and my fight career, is I had to learn the hard way. At first, I was doing both. And by doing both, I couldn't focus 100% on both. And when I was doing in acting, I was able to focus more because you don't get injured, you don't get sore. You just gotta know your character, your lines, and deliver it for the director. And if you mess up, you have take 2, take 3, take 4. In fighting, you can't really mess up. You get injured, you get submitted, you get knocked out, or you get hurt. And where I made the mistake is I started focusing more on the acting, and I was letting my fighting condition go because I was more focused on one. So after 2 losses, I learned the hard way, there won't be a third. If the third time happens, that means the guy really, really beat me and he's way better than I was. What happened was both times. I came back for the first time against Scott Smith, and I was controlling 2.5 rounds, and I got caught at the end because I was gassed out and I didn't fight my fight. Against Vanderlei, I dominated the first round. It was real close in the second round, but I felt like I had the edge, and I got caught because I was tired, and plus I was in 100%. And then when I focus on my fight, and plus I changed my trainer to from Javier Mendez to Scott Cheeley. Look at the outcome. I beat Patrick Corte, who's actually fought a really good fight against Anderson Silva, and I beat Rich Franklin, a UFC legend and former middleweight champion, and I knocked him out. So if I'm focused on one thing, then I'm still dangerous in the fight game, and I can compete against anyone.
I often hear like basketball players or football players share with their fans how important it is to work closely with the coach and really trust the coach. Do you feel the same way that when you train you have to trust your trainer 100%? There have to be that relationship of trusting between you and your trainer in order to achieve your goal?
Definitely. I feel like, especially in the fight game, you can't do it on your own. You have your trainers, and a lot of MMA fighters now, because MMA has become so popular, it's the fastest growing sport in the world, they go to their boxing coach, they go to their grappling coach, they have a wrestling coach. One thing good about Scott is he's very, very well rounded with everything. So he brings in a good wrestler for me to wrestle. He'll bring in a good boxer for me to work with, and then he puts it all together. So I don't go in there and during the fight, I'm not just boxing. I'm putting it all together. I punch, I kick, I go for takedowns. I'm grounding and pounding and looking for submission. And that's how the game should be implemented for a fight. You're not boxing. You're not wrestling because it's MMA. You're doing everything.
I mean, for the last couple of years, we've been seeing you appear in a lot of great films. I love it when I see you in like Donnie Yen's movie or The Grandmaster with Tony Leung and other great martial arts films. And you've been really busy making all these great films in Hollywood. So now tell us about this new movie that you just finished doing with Dolph Lundgren, Puncture Wounds. That's a very interesting name.
Actually, I finished this last May. It was called A Certain Justice.
That's under a different title.
Yeah, but since Lionsgate bought the film,
right,
and they said there's 20 titles with justice in it, they decided to call it Puncture Wound. For me, I didn't like the title. I'm like, sounds like something, triple X or something,
I don't think so. It doesn't sound like porn.
But, it is what it is, but I think the international release is called A Certain Justice. Basically, it's about a Green Beret who was caught behind enemy lines, and he comes back to society after so many tours, and he has that...
PTSD?
Yes, PTSD.
Post-traumatic,
yeah. And so I come back and I get into a little trouble, and that trouble leads to the Aryan brothers killing my family. And basically, to sum the story up, it's First Blood meets American History X.
And some other describe as Rambo. It's a cross between Rambo and No Country for No Man.
Yes.
Do you agree with that description?
Yes, I totally agree with that. But I would have to say that it's more realistic, because like we're trying to the action and the tactical stuff is more in line with what someone would actually do in real life instead of jump out of a helicopter, grab a whole bunch of branches. I love that kind of action, but I also love to see realistic where someone's getting hit with bullets and how they really feel. And I feel like the era of like the Stallone and Arnold, where they have those one-liners, are kind of not kicking in for them, and it's more like people got to get behind their hero. And if their hero doesn't have facial reaction, or when he's stitching himself up there's no pain, but he's just like too tough.
He's too tough.
And then I think this character in Puncture Wounds is more human, where, you know, there's a scene where his friend is getting some pellets out of his leg and he's in so much pain where he's like, you know, like begging him to stop. You know, so.